Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive.
Always ready to explore some new ideas.
Today we're tackling this intriguing concept, doing more, way more, but actually putting in less effort.
It's almost like finding a cheat code for success, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the source material you sent over, it dives right into this idea, calling it you², basically unlocking a turbocharged version of yourself.
It's all about achieving these incredible breakthroughs in your life and work.
Breakthroughs, not just small incremental improvements.
Exactly. We're talking about quantum leaps. That's the term the author uses. It's about completely redefining what you thought was possible.
Okay, I love that. Quantum leaps. Before we get into specifics, maybe paint us a picture. What does a quantum leap actually look like?
Well, imagine this. You've got a fly, right? It's trapped inside a house, desperately buzzing against a window, trying with all its might to break through the glass.
I could practically hear the buzzing.
Right. So much wasted energy, so much struggle. But the thing is, just a few steps away, there's an open door. Total freedom, with practically zero effort.
Wow, that's such a vivid image,
Yeah.
and it's so relatable. I think we've all felt like that fly at some point, banging our heads against a wall when the solution was right there in front of us the whole time.
Exactly. And that's one of the core ideas here. Sometimes the very act of trying harder is what's keeping us stuck. The real breakthrough often comes from stepping back and looking for a completely different approach.
Not just doing more of the same, but doing something different entirely.
Right. It's about shifting your perspective, not just your effort level.
Okay, so that brings us to this concept of you², the quantum leap strategy for breakthrough performance. Tell us more about what the author means by that.
Basically, it's about accomplishing significantly more, like way more in less time and with far less effort than you might think possible.
It almost sounds too good to be true.
I know, right? But the book breaks down the steps. He actually lays out specific mental shifts and practical actions that can make these kinds of leaps achievable. We'll be getting into all of that.
Awesome. I'm ready to unlock my you². So what are some of the key ideas we'll be exploring?
Well, we'll look at how to rewrite your own personal rules for success, because the old rules might be holding you back.
We'll also dig into why you should actually quit just trying harder. That one's pretty counterintuitive.
It is. We'll talk about why. And then we'll explore the power of ignoring conventional wisdom, because sometimes the most innovative solutions lie outside of what everyone else is doing.
Love that. Breaking the mold.
Exactly. We'll also look at how to think beyond what common sense would allow.
So stretching our imaginations, aiming for things that might seem impossible right now.
Yes. And even the surprising idea of suspending disbelief, acting as if your success is already a guaranteed outcome.
I'm intrigued. That sounds almost like a mental trick.
It kind of is. We'll unpack it. And then there's more. We'll get into why focusing on the end goal is way more powerful than obsessing over every tiny step along the way.
So keep your eyes on the prize.
That's it. And there's this fascinating concept of tapping into what he calls unseen forces to help you achieve your goal.
Unseen forces. Okay, I'm really curious about that one.
It's really interesting. We'll also talk about the importance of choosing a different set of risks, because taking calculated risks is often the key to breakthroughs.
That makes sense. But it's definitely not the message we usually hear.
I know, but it's essential for quantum leaps. We'll also look at why putting your trust in the very act of pursuing your goals can make a huge difference.
So it's not just about setting a goal, but about actively chasing it.
Exactly. And we'll even explore the surprising value of seeking out failure, because learning from mistakes is a huge part of the process.
I can definitely relate to that. I've had my share of failures.
We all have. We'll also talk about the importance of getting comfortable with feeling uncomfortable, because growth often happens outside of your comfort zone.
No pain, no gain. Right.
Something like that. And finally, we'll touch on this beautiful concept of opening your gifts, recognizing and utilizing your unique talents and abilities.
I like that. It's about embracing what makes you, you.
Exactly. There's a lot to unpack here, but it's all geared towards helping you achieve those quantum leaps.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. This term quantum leap, it comes from the world of quantum physics, right?
Right. It's this idea of a particle, like an electron, instantaneously jumping from one energy level to another without actually traveling through the space in between.
So no gradual movement, it just suddenly appears somewhere else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's a physicist named Fred Alan Wolf who uses this as a metaphor for personal growth. He describes a quantum leap as taking a risk, going off into uncharted territory with no guide to follow.
I love that. It's like taking a blind leap of faith, trusting that you'll land somewhere amazing.
Precisely. And that makes you think, can we really apply this concept of sudden, explosive jumps to our own lives, our own achievements?
It's a very different way of thinking about progress because we're so used to this idea of gradual improvement. Taking small steps, climbing the ladder one rung at a time.
Right. But you² is about bypassing those rungs, making an explosive jump to a level that's way beyond what seems logically possible from your current position.
It's not just about adding a little more effort, it's about exponential growth.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is that these quantum leaps often happen without a long, drawn-out period of struggle. They can seem almost effortless in retrospect, but in the moment, they often defy common sense.
It's only when you look back that you realize, wow, that was a huge shift.
Exactly. It's like looking back at a photo of yourself from years ago and thinking, wow, I can't believe how much I've changed.
So let's dig into some of these specific strategies. The author talks about changing your personal rules for success. What does he mean by that?
He's basically saying that if you want to achieve extraordinary results, you can't just keep playing by the same old rules that got you to where you are now.
Because what worked in the past might not work for reaching that next level.
Exactly. You need a new set of rules, a new way of thinking. The problem is we often get so attached to our past successes, to what we know, but clinging too tightly to those old rules can actually create limitations for future breakthroughs.
Just like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole.
Perfect analogy. And this is where it becomes crucial to be open to trying new things, new behaviors, even if they seem counterintuitive at first.
It's about stepping outside your comfort zone, being willing to experiment.
Right. And that brings us to this really interesting concept. Quit trying harder.
Wait, did I hear that right? Quit trying harder. That almost feels wrong to say.
I know, it goes against everything we're usually told, right? But the author makes a really important distinction. He acknowledges the importance of self-discipline and persistence, especially for building skills and making incremental progress.
So hard work definitely has its place.
It absolutely does. But he argues that simply trying harder, putting in more effort, isn't the key to those massive, game-changing quantum leaps.
It's about working smarter, not just harder.
Exactly. Just like our fly at the window, sometimes the answer isn't to push harder, but to find a completely different approach. And often, that new approach requires less brute force and more strategic thinking.
Less muscle, more finesse.
Exactly. And to find those clever solutions, the author emphasizes the importance of ignoring conventional ways. Quantum leaps often require you to abandon the status quo, to break free from the accepted norms, and explore solutions that might seem illogical or even counterintuitive at first.
It's going against the grain, zigging when everyone else is zagging.
Exactly. He gives some really interesting examples, like reversing field going in the opposite direction of what everyone else is doing.
That's a bold move.
It can be. He also talks about being deliberately illogical, questioning those assumptions that everyone takes for granted.
So thinking outside the box, challenging the conventional wisdom.
Yes. And there's this idea of ricocheting, using unexpected angles and approaches to get around obstacles.
So instead of trying to force your way through a locked door, maybe you find an open window instead.
Exactly. It's about looking for those elegant, simple, precise solutions that require minimal effort but deliver maximum impact. The kind of solutions that make you think, why didn't I think of that before?
It's about working smarter, not harder.
Exactly. And the biggest obstacle here is what he calls faith in the familiar. We tend to stick with what we know, what's worked for us in the past, even when it's no longer serving us.
Because it feels safe and comfortable.
Right. But to make those quantum leaps, we have to be willing to let go of those familiar patterns and embrace new, untested approaches.
That takes a lot of courage to step outside of your comfort zone like that.
It does. And this naturally leads us to the next key idea, thinking beyond what common sense would allow.
So pushing past those mental boundaries we often create for ourselves without even realizing it.
Exactly. It's about shifting your focus from what seems impossible to what might actually be possible if you dared to dream bigger.
It's about challenging those self-imposed limitations.
Yes. And the author really encourages you to think about your deepest desires, your most ambitious goals, and to let those guide you rather than letting what you currently perceive as realistic hold you back.
He's basically saying, don't let your current limitations define your future possibilities.
Right. And he makes a clear distinction between those small incremental improvements, those 10 to 20% gains, and the dramatic multiple-fold increases that characterize a true quantum leap.
So we're not talking about baby steps here. We're talking about massive leaps forward.
Exactly. And this requires a complete shift in mindset, a
Right.
willingness to embrace the unknown and to trust in your own potential.
So how do we actually make that mental shift? The author talks about suspending disbelief and acting as if success is already a done deal. It's a really interesting concept.
It is. It's about consciously choosing to believe in your ability to make that quantum leap, even if you don't have all the evidence or proof up front.
So instead of waiting for proof, you choose to believe first.
Right. It's almost like you're creating a self-fulfilling prophecy by setting that intention and then watching as the evidence and opportunities start to appear.
It's like you're priming your mind to see possibilities that you were blind to before.
Exactly. And he acknowledges that there might be some skepticism, some doubts that creep in, but he suggests that those doubts are often rooted in what he calls mental junk, those ingrained negative thought patterns and limiting beliefs that we've accumulated over time.
It's that inner voice that tells us we're not good enough, not smart enough, not ready enough.
Exactly. But he encourages us to challenge those voices, to tap back into that inherent faith and confidence that we likely had before those limiting beliefs took hold.
It's about reclaiming that belief in ourselves, in our ability to achieve great things.
Yes. And then the key is to actually act on that belief, to behave as if success is the only logical outcome. It's about not giving any mental space to those doubts, because they can really derail your efforts.
So unwavering belief, unwavering action, that's powerful.
It is. And that brings us to the next principle, focusing on ends rather than means.
So keeping your eyes on the prize.
Exactly. The author stresses the importance of having a crystal clear, vivid picture of your desired outcome, of where you want to be after you've made that quantum leap.
So not just a vague idea, but a really specific vision.
Right. He says that this clear vision acts like a powerful magnet, drawing you towards the necessary resources and solutions, even if you can't see how it's all going to come together right now.
So trust the process.
Exactly. And he cautions against getting bogged down in the how-to in those initial stages.
So don't overthink it.
Right. A lot of people get stuck trying to map out every single step, but he suggests letting go of that need for control. Trust that the right steps will reveal themselves as you move forward, and they're likely to be simpler and more direct than you might imagine.
It's about taking action, even if you don't have all the answers yet.
Exactly. The key is to have a clear destination and the willingness to start moving in that direction.
Okay, this next one is a bit unconventional. The author talks about relying on unseen forces to help you achieve your goal.
I know it sounds a little out there, right? But hear me out. He's basically saying that you don't have to do it all alone.
There's help available, even if we can't see it.
Exactly. He uses the analogy of an iceberg. We only see the tip above the water, but there's this massive, unseen structure beneath the surface.
So there's more to reality than meets the eye.
Right. And he believes that your very willingness to make that quantum leap, to commit to that big goal, actually sets in motion these unseen forces that can support you in ways you might not even be able to imagine right now.
So it's not just about your individual effort. There are other forces at play.
Exactly. He compares it to playing bridge and trusting that your partner has strong cards even though you can't see their hand.
It's about having faith in something bigger than yourself.
Yes. And these unseen forces can manifest in different ways through your subconscious mind, through intuition, through synchronicity, through what we often call luck.
So being open to possibilities, being receptive to guidance that might come from unexpected sources.
Exactly. He encourages you to visualize your goal clearly, to hold that image in your mind, because that helps those unseen forces to understand what you're trying to achieve.
It's like sending out a signal to the universe.
Right. And even if you don't fully understand how it all works, the important thing is to be open to it.
Okay, the next concept is about risk-taking. The author talks about choosing a different set of risks.
Yes. And he starts by acknowledging that aiming for a quantum leap can feel inherently risky. You're stepping outside of your comfort zone. You're venturing into the unknown.
There are no guarantees.
Right. But he makes a really crucial point. There are also risks associated with staying exactly where you are, with playing it safe. The risk of not fulfilling your potential, of settling for a life that's less than what you're capable of.
That's a powerful perspective. We often focus on the risks of taking action, but we forget about the risks of inaction.
Exactly. And he emphasizes that risk is an inherent part of life. So the real decision isn't whether or not to take risks, but which risks you're willing to embrace.
It's about choosing the risks that align with your values, with your goals, with your vision for your life.
Yes. And he challenges the conventional wisdom that playing it safe is always the best strategy. He argues that sometimes the biggest risk is not taking any risks at all.
Because that could lead to stagnation,
Yeah.
to a feeling of being stuck.
Exactly. And he stresses that taking calculated risks, stepping outside of your comfort zone, is often the catalyst for those big breakthroughs, those quantum leaps.
It's about pushing your boundaries, challenging your limitations.
Exactly. And he encourages you to reframe challenges as opportunities for growth.
So instead of seeing obstacles as roadblocks, see them as stepping stones.
Yes. And he reminds us that the odds actually start to shift in your favor the moment you decide to challenge them. When you're willing to take risks, you're opening yourself up to a world of possibilities that wouldn't have existed otherwise.
That's empowering.
It is. And that leads us to the next principle, trust in the power of pursuit.
So it's not just about setting a goal, but about actively chasing it.
Exactly. He emphasizes that most of the dreams we hold dear are actually within our reach, and the secret ingredient is simply the act of actively pursuing them.
It's about putting in the effort, taking consistent action.
Yes. He explains that the very act of taking action starts to change the way the world interacts with you. Your dream doesn't just sit there, it starts to move towards you as you move towards it.
So it's a two-way street.
Exactly. And he makes a clear distinction between passive states like wishing and hoping and the dynamic energy of active pursuit.
So it's not just about wanting it, it's about going after it.
Yes. He believes that the very act of pursuit strengthens your commitment, boosts your confidence, and opens you up to new opportunities that you wouldn't have seen otherwise.
Okay, this next idea might be a little harder to swallow. The author actually encourages us to seek failure. Why would we want to do that?
I know it sounds counterintuitive, right? But his reasoning is that quantum leaps inherently involve pushing beyond your current limitations, and that inevitably means making mistakes along the way.
So failure is part of the process.
Exactly. He suggests reframing those mistakes as valuable feedback.
So instead of seeing failures as setbacks, see them as opportunities for learning and growth.
Yes. He even points out that you might experience a temporary dip in performance, what he calls a performance lag, right at the beginning of a quantum leap as you're adapting to new ways of operating.
So it's like those growing pains you experience when you're stretching yourself, trying new things.
Right. And he stresses the importance of being mentally prepared for those moments of discomfort because they're a sign that you're actually pushing your boundaries, that you're on the right track.
It's about embracing the messiness of the process.
Exactly. And he encourages you to deliberately shake up your routine, to step outside of your comfort zone, to create a little bit of internal chaos.
Because that's where the magic happens.
It often does. He uses analogies like learning to ride a bike or launching a rocket. There are almost always some stumbles and adjustments along the way.
It's all part of the journey.
Exactly. And he reminds us that failure is not a sign of defeat. It's simply feedback, a way of discovering where your current limits are so you can push past them.
It's about learning from your mistakes and becoming more resilient in the process.
Yes. And this ties into the next concept, which is getting uncomfortable.
So being willing to step outside of that cozy comfort zone.
Exactly. Quantum leaps inherently involve venturing into unfamiliar territory, facing new challenges, and encountering obstacles you haven't dealt with before.
It can be a little scary.
It definitely can be. Our natural instinct is to cling to what feels safe and familiar, but he argues that you actually need to let go of that need for constant security if you want to make those big leaps forward.
It's about embracing the uncertainty.
Exactly. And he clarifies that true control in this context doesn't come from trying to control every single aspect of the situation, but from having a clear vision of your destination and being willing to adapt and adjust your course as you go.
It's about trusting the process, even when it feels uncomfortable.
Yes. He acknowledges that a quantum leap is an act of faith. It involves surrendering some of that perceived security and safety and navigating the ambiguity, the uncertainty, and the potential for failure.
It's about having the courage to keep going, even when you're not sure what lies ahead.
Exactly. And he actually reframes discomfort as a positive indicator. If you're not feeling at least a little bit uneasy, he suggests that maybe the risk you're taking isn't significant enough to lead to a true breakthrough.
So a little bit of discomfort is a good sign. It means you're growing.
Right. And he reminds us that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's about taking action despite the fear.
Now let's talk about this beautiful concept of opening your gifts.
This is one of my favorite ideas in the book. He believes that every single person possesses a wealth of untapped talents and abilities, unique gifts that are just waiting to be discovered and expressed.
It's about recognizing your own potential, your own special sauce.
Exactly. And he makes an interesting distinction. He suggests that the people we often label as gifted aren't necessarily born with some magical advantage, but rather they're the ones who have recognized and embraced their natural inclinations, their passions.
So it's not just about having talent, it's about nurturing it, developing it.
Exactly. He encourages us to actively claim our own unique gifts, suggesting that the very act of acknowledging them can lead to their further development.
So don't be shy about your talents. Embrace them.
Yes. He draws a connection between the skills you've already developed and the gifts you've already opened, and then prompts you to think about any dormant potential, any unused abilities that might be waiting to be brought to light.
So what are you good at? What are you passionate about? What lights you up?
Those are the questions to ask yourself. And he frames this whole you² experience as a journey of self-discovery, a process of uncovering and expressing your authentic self.
It's about becoming the best version of yourself.
Exactly. And this leads to the next principle, falling in love with your goal.
So it's not just about setting a goal, it's about feeling passionate about it.
Exactly. He emphasizes that quantum leaps require a deep level of emotional investment. You need that fire in your belly, that passion that sustains you when you inevitably encounter those obstacles and setbacks.
It's that drive that keeps you going when things get tough.
Right. And he explains that this passion is fueled by having a vivid, compelling vision of your dream. He encourages you to really tap into your desires, to loosen any limits on your thinking, and to pursue what you truly want most in life.
Because if you don't truly love your goal, it's going to be a lot harder to stay motivated when things get challenging.
Exactly. He describes quantum leaps as an act of love, a passionate statement of intent. It's about aligning your actions with your heart's desires.
Okay, this next principle is a bit counterintuitive. He talks about making your move before you're ready. That seems a little scary.
It does, doesn't it? But he makes a really important point. We often get stuck in this endless cycle of preparation, waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect conditions.
We tell ourselves, I'll start when I have more time, more money, more experience.
Right. But he argues that the necessary resources, the crucial details, will often emerge and become clear as you actually start taking action.
So instead of waiting for the perfect moment, you create the perfect moment by taking action.
Exactly. You don't prepare for a quantum leap in some abstract way. You make the leap and then you refine your approach as you go.
It's about learning by doing.
Yes. He encourages you to trust your instincts, to embrace imperfection, and to be willing to course correct along the way.
So don't let perfectionism paralyze you.
Right. He emphasizes the importance of agility and adaptability. Things will inevitably change as you move forward, so being able to adjust your strategy is crucial.
It's about being flexible, being responsive to new information and unexpected challenges.
Exactly. And he reminds us that a quantum leap isn't some perfectly orchestrated plan. It's a journey of discovery. You're learning as you go.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. What's the final takeaway?
The author concludes by emphasizing the importance of looking inside for opportunity. He believes that everything you truly need in this moment, the opportunity, the timing, the power, ultimately comes from within yourself.
So the answers are already within us? We just need to listen.
Exactly. He encourages you to listen to that inner voice, to your intuition, to your dreams, to your desires.
Because that's where you'll find your true north, your guiding light.
Yes. And he reminds you that all the external pieces are already in position, waiting for you to make that first move, that first leap of faith.
So it's about taking ownership, taking responsibility for creating the life you want.
Exactly. And his final call to action is so simple, yet so powerful. Just do it. Make the quantum leap.
I love that. Just do it. So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's take a moment to reflect on all these incredible ideas. We've explored a completely different perspective on achieving our goals, one that challenges conventional wisdom and encourages us to think bigger, to dream bigger, to act bigger.
It's about moving beyond those self-imposed limitations and tapping into our true potential.
And it's about recognizing that we have more power than we often realize to create the life we want.
I'm reminded of a quote from Kathy Mattea's song, Come From the Heart. You've got to sing like you don't need the money, love, like you'll never get hurt. You've got to dance like nobody's watching. It's got to come from the heart if you want it to work.
That's beautiful. It's about living with passion, with courage, with authenticity.
Exactly. It's about letting go of fear and embracing the unknown.
So as you go about your day, your week, your life, I encourage you to think about which of these principles resonates most deeply with you. Which one speaks to your current challenges, your current aspirations?
And then consider how you might apply even just one of these unconventional strategies to your own life or work. It could be the catalyst for your own quantum leap.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
Until then, keep leaping.